on the team good?
Yes, I am too.
I have no objections.
Okay, then that delay was perfectly timed to get your approval in the time that it started up. So hopefully this is good, and I will share this with you, the recording after the meeting. Our Streams is one of these things. It integrates with Teams, and whenever you record a meeting, it's being recorded to Streams. And Streams does have encryption, over the wire, encryption at rest, and we can encrypt content itself. So the content itself can be encrypted as well. So just know that this is another benefit that you get from Microsoft Teams when you use it. So I'll show you and talk about custodians, users, teams, and team sites, how you can put them on litigation hold. I'll also discuss how litigation hold or query-based hold or rules-based records, whatever you call it, are the one and the same as Microsoft is concerned. So when you hear litigation hold, think of query-based records or query-based holds or rules-based records. All of that stuff is the same to us, and it's just one of the ways that we can place content on hold. And you are talking about data collections and how do we get this from repositories, and there's some new things there as far as when we look at holds or gathering content. Which content and which repositories, and I do have an architecture slide that shows Teams is a culmination or a combination. The Teams team originally had created their own email service, and they had also created their own document repository, which were both kind of stupid considering Microsoft has the #1 communication tool in the world, Exchange, and Outlook, and the #1 collaboration tool in the world, SharePoint, and we had the #2 communication tool in the world, Skype. So we replaced the phone system capabilities in Teams with the Skype and made a bunch of improvements. We replaced their document collaboration enterprise content management solution with SharePoint, and we replaced their email stupid solution with Exchange and Outlook. So just know that, again, you've got the same questions a lot of my customers, of my 3,000, all 3,000 of my customers have. And in the back of this presentation, I do have frequently asked questions, and we will get you this presentation as well. So, and where chats are stored, we'll cover that as well and how they can be produced, and then calls and voicemails. So jumping right in, these are the items, and there are more items that are discoverable, and there's a great document, and we will make this document, and all of our docs are really good. The other thing that I'll point out here, so this does talk about what is discoverable, searchable, producible, or deliverable, depending upon which taxonomy you use. And you can download. The most important thing about our docs, you can download this as a PDF. And what is great about that is you could pop it into OneNote, or you could pop it into Word. You can reduce the margin. And then if you do or make a policy change, like you do run this following PowerShell and say, hey, I'm going to put this parent group ID on hold, and you use PowerShell to do it, you can, in the margin of your PDF, make a note on why you did that or why the policy was important. And then if you had, legislation, you could attach the documentation or the ID to that if required. So it's a little tip from your Uncle Tom that I know, lots and lots of people love that idea. I've seen very few actually implement it. The other thing you could do is, again, save this as a PDF, annotate the PDF, and upload it to a SharePoint site where your other IT documents are stored. But this is a great document. It's fairly new. We just produced this on the end of April, and actually it didn't ship to the web. It didn't get through CELA and everything till about the first week of May, so I apologize for that. Hand in hand with this eDiscovery investigation of content in Teams, there is a hold, placing a hold on Teams user, Teams legal holds. And this is great content as well. And I'll walk you through this in a demo. But again, you can download this and grab it as a PDF print it out or pop it in a SharePoint site, etc. Pay particular attention to any of these notes in purple, and know that there are a couple of capabilities, like I will talk about our holds and group-based holds, being able to hold a modern office group location. Modern office group location, very important, and that did ship to government community cloud. If you're in the GCC, our government community cloud for our government customers, that did ship 2 weeks ago. It was a silent ship, so it was just functionality just occurred. I know that was a lot of stuff. Any questions, comments, concerns on this so far? Five minutes in, I lost everybody.
Now we're just on mute, son.
Perfect. All right. So let's jump back here. And this is the thing that I was just getting, that there are multiple ways of placing holds. And I use this wedding cake, and it's the old-fashioned wedding cake, or an upside-down TCA, terminal control area, if you're a pilot. But this wedding cake kind of metaphor, and it's not, Ace of Cakes or Duff's Cakes or any of those cakes that are all kind of weird wedding cakes, but the traditional wedding cake, the biggest the portion of your content, your corpus of content, is going to be held or retained by a retention label or policy. These retention policies are going to apply to the vast or the most number of users and the vast or most amount of content in your corpus. So that's why this is the foundation or the bottom. The very first policies, labels that you should put in place should be retention labels. And our labels, as you will see and learn, really only do two things, and they're both P's. They preserve, well, there's three things. They preserve, they purge, or they protect content. So preservation, how long do I keep something? Purge, I want to keep it for this long and then absolutely get rid of it. And Microsoft attests that when you purge content, we do get rid of it, and it is out of your the data center within 24 hours. So we do have a letter of attestation on that purge part. So it's preservation, purge, and protect. So preserve, purge, protect. Those are the three P's. And boy, that is just annoying. I got to throw that watch away. The next step up from this is a file plan. And if you do have a record plan with a file plan, your file plan can be imported into Office 365. And again, you can use a file plan. The next thing is individual retention labels that you can create individually for, and you can base these on people, places where the content is, or the actual content or context. So it can be based upon the content or the context. And we do have things like fingerprinting to get the context. And then the next step up is this brand new thing that just shipped. It used to be in gray here because it was a future focus or a future feature. It did ship a couple of weeks ago, is group labels, and we can say a modern group location. So we can take advantage of groups, or we can say a Teams content location. So a Teams location. Those are only available in PowerShell today, not via the UI. And then there's a query based, which is, hey, Tom is a custodian. I want to hold all of Tom's content, no matter where it exists, if it's in Teams or OneDrive or SharePoint or email, wherever it is, I'm going to run this query, and if it meets that query, I'm going to hold that content forever. And then we have this thing called an inactive or a departed user. I never used the departed user, but there's this inactive litigation hold. And this litigation or inactive user is, again, the smallest, because hopefully you've got more current employees than you do inactive employees. And hopefully those inactive employees, roll off. I did have one city that said, gosh, we hold everything for 100 years after an employee departs. And I'm like, well, where is that? And they took me down to a room that had all these great big laser discs, and half of them had laser rot. And I was like, well, what do you even play that on today? Are there laser disc players today? And they were like, no. So, all your content will be held in the cloud. It's what we call in-place records. And this is a change from this traditional methodology of holding content on magnetic media or tapes or laser discs or whatever on premises in a vault. And most of the time in these archival means, most folks use this archive as a means to take advantage of a lower tier of storage as I'm moving something from Fiber Channel RAID 10 to SATA RAID 5 to just a bunch of disks. Then all these other companies bolted on a eDiscovery compliance litigation solution, a case management solution. There were a lot of disadvantages to this. It took a lot of storage. You had multiple stores, didn't have a single source of truth, blah, blah, blah. So in the cloud today, you have in-place records where we're just going to keep your storage in place. And this has one huge benefit in that, we've moved from 7,500 RPM drives to 10K RPM drives to 15K RPM drives to silicon SSD solid state disk. And down the road, when we move to, dilithium crystal storage, your storage will move to dilithium crystal as well. We don't come back to you and go, hey, we're moving from 75 to 10K RPM, so we need another $1 million from you. We're moving to 15K RPM, we need another $1 million. We're moving to SSD, we need another $1 million. Your storage is your storage, and as we move our data centers to new storage, just as in the future, if there is dilithium crystal storage, that usually makes my trekkers chuckle, you will get that move as well. And since it is in place, you don't have to have multiple sources. I grew up in Minnesota, and Jesse Ventura, when he was governor, made fishing and hunting a right in Minnesota, and I grew up as a kid fishing in Minnesota, and we certainly didn't go out, scoop up the lake, and then dump it into swimming pools, and then send divers down for fish. We left the lake where it was. We went out. This is not me as a little boy, or even me as an adult in a fishing boat. We went out, we baited the hook, we had our queries, we baited our hook, we caught our fish, and then we brought back the fish, or those needles in the needle stack, because it's not a needle in a haystack. We're looking for an email, and it looks like every other email. So using the terminology here, this is what we're going to do. We're not going to make separate pools. You certainly can export content. You certainly can through EDRM export your content to go into a case prep tool, or you can just export PST files and all of those things, which is nice. But we're going to leave that content and hold that content in place, not make multiple copies of that content until you decide to deliver or produce that content. And I know that was a lot of stuff, so I'm going to pause right there for questions, comments, concerns.
Just going to mention, that's good to hear that you have that option available. PSTs has been the common platform that we're using today. So you mentioned that you can work with other platforms. What other platforms do you work with for the other EDR solution that you mentioned?
Yeah, pretty much all of them, because again, when we export content, we export it in electronic data ED. I can't remember what EDRM stands for. Yes. But we do export in a EDRM format. And in the not too distant future, next month, you will have the choice to say, hey, I either want to export PSTs like I normally do or have with content search, or I want to export with the EDRM. We've always in advanced eDiscovery supported EDRM. I wrote a little 19-step code thing that takes that EDRM and converts it to PSTs, but we're building that into the solution. So you can say, I want PSTs or I want EDRM. And then there's another thing with the redaction tool that I'll show you in any annotation. If you so decide you can take a review set, a resultant set of content, and export it as PDF files. So that's a new capability that will be coming to you in July. All right. The other thing, retention hold wise, just the longest retention wins, the shortest retention. The retention always wins over deletion. So if we have a 5-year retention policy, and then I do a query based hold let's go this way. If I have a query based hold for 3 years, that hold is released even if it is released, that content is going to be held until it's 5 years. But let's say on year 3 of that 5-year hold, I place a 3-year query or a rolling query that goes beyond that 5 years, right? So I've held it for 3 years under our 5-year retention policy that applies to all that content in the corpus and all the users. At year 3, I placed a 3-year hold, taking me out to year 6. That content will be held until all holds are released and until all retention periods are satisfied. So again, the longest retention period will win. Explicit inclusion always wins over implicit inclusion, and the shortest deletion period would win. So if I have a purge in 3 years, or like some of my customers say, like, oh, for the DOT, because they got in trouble once, we need a 1-day purge on all chat messages. Well, if they had a 1-year hold on all chat messages elsewhere, they'd have to put in an exclusion to exclude the DOT, and I'll show you all that. So that'll become pretty clear here. But again, the shortest deletion period will win. So if I had a 1-day hold on the DOT, then that 1-day hold is going to win over the 1-year hold. Hope that's clear. So again, these sensitivity labels and retention labels to protect or preserve content. And in the sensitivity label, that is also causing you to purge content. That 1 day, after 1 day, get rid of the DOT's content, chats, for example. The other thing that's confusing here is we had 2 types of protection labels. We had Office 365 labels, and then we had Azure labels. And in the month of July, this unified labels will also ship. This was really problematic for customers who used Azure information protection labels, and maybe they were protecting content in a file share or on an end user's machine, which you can do. I could go out to this file and right click on it on the desktop and say, hey, I'm going to protect this file. So I want to classify, one of these should say classify and protect. I want to classify this file. I am using Azure Information Protection to classify this file as highly confidential, Microsoft full-time only employees, and then I move it to OneDrive or SharePoint. Those keys today are not shared. So the search and scanning and indexing engine in Office 365 could not scan this content. It would be very much if I used PGP, pretty good privacy, or zip and password protected the zip file. So in the future, with unified labels, things protected in Azure Information Protection will be viewable, scannable in Office 365, and things protected in Office 365 and analytics and everything will be done in in Azure. So we'll have unified labels, and this is the month of July, and that will help you unify these and eliminate problems. So it used to look like this. This shaft is being deleted and go away. So the only thing that we used to be able to do was create an RMS template and then leverage that template for Office message encryption, old and new. And this was kind of a key feature. But again, no, after this month, these two will be integrated and work together. And there is this capability of choosing locations, whether it's a SharePoint site or a Teams chat and channel messages, and I'll show you that. So let's see if there's anything else really important here. Again, this Teams architecture, I already explained this, but again, we're leveraging email for one-on-one chat, group chat, channel messages. We're leveraging SharePoint for your file repository. OneNote, OneDrive for business is going to be used for sharing content. We'll actually place that content that you share internally or externally in your OneDrive and share it from there. There's a lot of additional follow-up information on security, privacy, compliance tiers. This used to be short. I used to have just a short little arrow here showing, these are the only things we can do today. And then like every month or so, I'd make this arrow longer and longer. But now know that, you've got this soup to nuts, top to bottom. And again, I'll make these slides available so you can read this. I know we're a very limited time here. I'm trying to see if there's anything big glowing that I am missing. That's all good. Good, good, good. DLP is available in the commercial tenant today. That also will be shipping this summer for our GCC customers. So if somebody puts like a credit card number in a chat, that will be blocked, or HIPAA information or CGIS information, etc. And then I do have a bunch of nice, useful links here that break all of these things down by retention, privacy, etc. These are typically the most frequently asked questions I get. I think I had 9 of these, 1, 2, 3, 4, 8 or 9 that I popped in here in addition to yours. But with that, and how do we distinguish a chat? So let's go take a look at this stuff. First and foremost, you should know that there are permissions here. And the first thing that you need to do is assign permissions. How come one of these doesn't say permissions? What the heck? Why am I missing my permissions? Anyway, well, we'll skip that, but you can assign permissions. And then, as I mentioned, and this kind of goes from the bottom up, but this is where you'd create a retention policy. So if your entire organization, again, remember these apply to all users unless we exclude some users, retention policy will apply to all users and all content everywhere, again, unless we exclude that. So if we wanted to say, hey, I'm going to keep, chat messages for a year, I can come in here and say, chat for 1 year, and then describe that further if I want. And this is where you're going to say, hey, and I had some customers in the old days, all we had was a purge policy. It was, hey, I don't care what happens to this content over a year, but after a year is up, I'm going to delete this content. And all we had was from when it was created. Now we can say from when it was last modified as well. So we didn't really keep this content, so it wasn't really a hold, it was just a purge. All it did was actually purge the content when a year was up. Now I can say, hey, we absolutely want to keep this for a year, and then I can say, I don't want to do anything to this content. Or I can say, yes, I want to go ahead and delete it when the year is up, unless it's on some other hold, or no, don't delete it, just keep it there, forever. And I do have 2 cities, and one city to the north, they keep everything forever. And the city to the south of them, every 90 days, they delete everything. So city to the south deletes everything every 90 days. City to the north keeps everything forever. Those are 2 of the worst records management processes or policies in the world, but they're both being satisfied in Office 365. So I can say, hey, I'm just going to keep this stuff for 1 year, and then maybe I do want to delete it, maybe I don't want to delete it. If you do want to delete it, again, we can create another policy. You can literally create thousands of these policies in here, and I can say, hey, I don't want this policy to apply to Exchange, OneDrive accounts. I just want this to apply to Teams and channel messages. Boom. And then if we do have like the DOT and we want to exclude them, I can come in here and say, hey, I want to exclude a team like the X1050 team, and I'm going to exclude that team from this policy. So exclusion is a very good thing in this case. I'm able to say, if I'm going to do, purge for the X1050 launch team every day, and then I have this 1 year policy, I need to exclude that team. And these teams and groups can be assigned again now by PowerShell. So you don't have to come through here and search for each and every one of these. I can take PowerShell and say, show me all the teams that we have in our organization, and then I can add to a separated values, a CSV file, all the teams that I want to be excluded or included in this thing, in this particular policy. And again, I'm going to create this policy. In this case, I won't, because I've already got one of these out here. But I can create multiple policies, and I can, so in this case, I've got 3-year teams applying to specific teams, and a 3-year email applying, and a delete private chat daily applying to different teams. So again, you can create these teams here, and this is your information governance, retention policies, and then above and beyond that, you have file plan, where again, you can import labels or export labels, and then you can have these individual file plan labels and policies fire. And this is kind of like a semi-automatic. So we can have automatic, semi-automatic, or manual labels applying to content. And then up here, we can actually create a retention label for very specific content. So if I'm creating a label and a label policy, and again, I can have that label policy automatically applied, but I can create a, it's not, what's today's date? 29, not the 22nd. There is a description here for admins. So if this is being applied automatically, the admin, it can say, per ledge doc 2322.1. And then for an end user, this, chat will be retained due to XYZ. So you can make these very end usery or very admin, and then we can actually create a very specific file plan descriptor, because this will show up in our file plan. And then we just basically say, yes, I'm going to retain this. I'll just leave it set to 7 years. We do have a records classification if you use an external third party or a record center. And now I've created that label. And now I've got to create a policy or automatically apply this label. Again, labels can be manual, semi-automatic, or automatically applied to content. And then lastly here, from here, is our query-based or rules. This would be a rules-based record, but then we have our query-based, and I'll just show you the advanced eDiscovery that, again, shipping in the GCC any day now. You're going to go out and create a case, and then in that case, you will determine who is a member of this case, who has permissions, and this could be outside legal counsel, because I could just tell my outside legal counsel, go to protection.office.com, and then what I would do is create a guest user for that account. So if you wanted me as a guest at Microsoft, and I would say, don't ever invite me to any cases as a guest, you could invite me to a case, and I've added 3 different email addresses here, just to show, this one is a Google account, this one is an Office 365 account, this is a Hotmail account, and this also verifies that my Hotmail address is not #1BieberFan@hotmail.com. But you can add guests, and then me as a guest, I could go to protection.office.com, log in with my username and password, and you can even allow me to self-serve that, so I don't have to call your help desk or your IT folks to get my password reset. And I can come in, and the only cases I would see here are those cases that I have access to. So I literally have thousands of cases in here, but the only ones that Megan Bowen, who I'm acting as today, can see are these 4. And when Megan clicks on this case again, she can now come to settings and say, oh, I also need Tom Moen, our attorney, to see this, and she could add my external guest account to this case. If you remove my guest account, I will no longer have access, obviously, or you can come in and say, hey, I now want to remove Tom from this case, which is possible as well. All right. Any questions there? I know that was a lot to bite off, but hopefully it's you're following along okay, and this is all looking, sounding, acting good. Questions?
No questions from me. It looks actually good.
Good. Yeah, and I'm sorry, I'm going through like a 3-day seminar or a 3-day training. And we do have Premier services, and Premier does do a 3-day and a 5-day around this content. But I know I'm oversimplifying, making things look a whole heck of a lot easier than they might be in practice. But it really is this straightforward. We've put this process here to kind of go around the EDRM process. But it really isn't this process. I don't have the slide in here, but you might have somebody who assigns custodians. You might have somebody who puts content on hold. You might have people who do searches. You might have people who review and export content. And again, through our group rights and policies, permissions that you assign, you can have different people with different permissions coming in here. And the other thing that advanced eDiscovery does give you is this job. So it will show, hey, you've got 5 exports going on, and this is what their progress is. This was a big issue in the non-advanced eDiscovery. Was, you started an export and you didn't know if it was 1% done, 10% done, or 90% done. You will see a lack of progress bar. It's not a progress bar, it's a lack of progress bar. But you will see progress bars for all of these, things as work is being done here. So you will see what's being processed. And again, in settings, you can also select, hey, these are the analytics that we're going to use. You get to select, and I believe the lowest here is the 40%. I'm going to, 40% on document similarity. But you can say, hey, for something to be a near document or a similar document, I want that to be 95%, only 5% change, or it might be 99% similar, or it might be, again, 45% similar. You pick and choose how similar you want near duplicates and email threading. And as I'll show you in review, you'll see that in the review, it can show similar items side by side, just like a word reviewing tool. The next thing is we create these through artificial intelligence, machine learning themes. So I normally use the Enron case data. It's public record, and there are about 1.3 million files and about 100 or about 1 million emails. And it created themes like Ken Lay. It created a lay theme. It created a BlackBerry theme. It created an oil theme. These themes are just searches, content, similarities between content. And you can say, hey, I only want, 50 themes in there, or, I want, 200 themes in here. And it's just similarity, the way that we've looked at cases and how your searches and review have automatically been created. So, and you can include numbers in these themes as well. Like that Enron data was amazing. It's, the number of people who said, don't send this in email, use your BlackBerry. They can't search email, for example. So that shows up a lot. There were all these comments about when to use the BlackBerry to hide nefarious stuff. So the term BlackBerry was actually a theme. At Microsoft, we get sued for forward-looking statements, and we get sued for other things, and those generate themes. There are some things in here, like another benefit that you get with the advanced eDiscovery is true optical character recognition, additional eye filters for getting content. So if you're familiar with the content search tool, you'll probably be familiar with the fact that when we do a content search, and I've searched some content out here, and I've gone to find my resultant set, that generally about 8 to 10% of that content will come up as content that could not be fully indexed. So if I go and look at a search or some content, it might show me that, hey, there were, and usually it's much higher than this, it usually is about 8 to 10%. So 390, if my math at 30, 3,900, this is pretty low amount of content that was unindexed. And you'll see it drop to about 0.1% in advanced eDiscovery. So advanced eDiscovery has OCR and some other capabilities here. It's Elastic Cloud, so I don't know why you'd want that set on anything but high performance. Also, the back buttons, I've been using this back button instead of using the breadcrumb. Stupid me, I'm just not used to this yet. From here, after you set up your settings, invite external or internal people to the case, give them access to it, configure your themes and OCR, etc., and near duplicates, then you're going to create your custodians and add custodians. And I can add, like the legal team here. So I can go out and say, hey, I want to add the legal team, or I can add an individual. So I can add a DL to this as a custodian, and it is today. This is not configurable, but tomorrow it will be. But today it's going to be the people who are members of this distribution list as of the day that I create the custodians. So, and then what location do I want to put on hold for these folks? And I can say Exchange, I want OneDrive, whatever content, whatever places I want to hold that content. And then I can get to additional content here. Like again, choose this team. Like if the team did have a legal team, or we've got attorneys on this X.1050 team, I can say, oh, well, I'm sorry. Well, normally that would bring up the team and well, it could be I was not spelling legal wrong before, but that would allow you to choose the teams and add the teams or add the sites to that particular search. So I know that was one of your questions. How do we specify individual folks? And then if we're going to notify, we're going to put the legal team on hold. They will be added to this hold. So now I've got the legal team and the finance team, and I can, in fact, release these custodians from the team. So this did capture two mailboxes. I can edit that. Again, I can place individuals on hold if I so desire. And then we do have communications. If you want to communicate, here's the hold notice. And I had a kind of humorous notice here, but I can say, hey, what that notice is, you are on hold, you did something wrong, you shouldn't have done something wrong, so you wouldn't have been on hold. And then I can see who's responded to that communication. I can look at my different holds, or I can create a new hold. And again, here again, if I wanted to just do chat messages, I can come out here and say, yes, I want to do all of these groups, teams, and chat, or specify them. And then I can create and add a condition, like if I wanted to get to a message kind. So entering no keywords is going to find everything, but a message kind of IM, which is what chat is only going to place just those chat messages in those locations with these custodians on this hold. And there is not custo query language, but keyword query language docs. There is a nice document out here. Again, another beautiful thing to put a PDF of. Grab that PDF, save it, put it in OneNote or Word, but it will talk about their properties, date, decimal, double, and, ors, nots, years, months, near, order us near. All of these capabilities that you have, or if you're familiar with FAST query language or SharePoint query language, you can use either of those. You can rank and rate your content as well. All of those things are capable through the query language that I had here when I was creating this hold, to say, hey, I want to hold these locations and here's my query. And conditions are very strong. I only want the content, that was from this month, last January to March. So I can say, hey, I want to from January 1 to March 1, and save that off. So again, I can edit these queries and add as many conditions as I so desire. From there, and you will see that this job, like, hey, this hold is going on. I'm indexing that, so it says in progress. If I click on this, I can see how far it was done. If I do see, if I'm trying to shrink this back down. If I do see something that was partially successful, I can go in and go, okay, why was this partially successful, which we don't have in the core eDiscovery today. So I'm going to process this content off. I'm going to see what errors were, and far less errors, again, like 0.1% of the errors of the other. And then I can see my searches, and then I can create these searches and build review sets here and look at, like, here's a primary custodial review, and I'm going to go in and look at all of this content. And then I can use some of these nice tools to, like, say, hey, convert all the redacted content to PDFs. Like maybe we're redacting content and we've got a public records request. I need to kick that out as a PDF file. Or I've got something here that's been tagged. I've got a tagging panel that I can, in this window now, I'll see an annotation view. So I can do things like redact this content. And this is where, it is better to have a larger monitor. I can move these things off to the side. You will see some things here like a conversation view. If there are near duplicates, show me the near duplicates side by side. I'm going to just shrink that. How come I cannot pull this open here? Duh, Tom's an idiot. That's why. So I can see these near duplicates and then compare these two, side by side. So I can do a side by side evaluation of these things and explore this, or tag these as and see the differences that were created there. But again, I can see my tagging panel and can tag things if it was responsive, non-responsive, attorney-client privilege, and you can add, modify these tags even on the fly. So Snohomish Public Utilities Department asked me to show this to him, so I created a SNOPUD, and this was
I couldn't hear what you said.
their demo. So I can modify these things and add different tagging policies here, and then I can create I can create a query within my review panel. So I can filter this down. I can add a new condition. I can reduce and minimize this content, and you will see like the redaction capabilities here. Once I get this open, that you can, this doesn't have any redaction. Here we go. So I will pick green, and if I wanted to circle that, I can circle that. If I wanted to redact it, I can say, hey, this should have been redacted here. And again, I could probably change the color there if I'm used to just redaction here. Because I have the ability, I can remove that redaction, and I could come back in here and say I wanted to redact that in a different color. And then if I do have rights to this, I can come back and look at a text view or look at a source view, and it removed the redaction. Now, if I didn't have rights to this, I am only going to see the redacted view of this content. But if I do have rights to it, then I can see the source view and see this additional information. We're working on coded redaction for this fall, so it will get things like PII, HIPAA, things that you basically have sensitive files, sensitive or protection labels for. It will protect that content, and again, you can modify that. So with that, you just have seen the world's fastest holds and eDiscovery demo. I am open to any questions that you may have. I will go back while you are coming off mute to look at your questions and make sure we did thoroughly hit on them today, provided my mouse works.
So I've created a Microsoft Teams site that is externally accessible. In other words, you folks will be able to access it. Everybody that's on the call, I've given rights to the site. You'll be getting an email in your inbox on how you can connect to it and everything like that. Tom's deck, I'll be moving into that site, so you can download it. And I'll also look to see how we can kind of email it. I think it might be too big to email, at least initially, so we may have to PDF it.
And the
Yeah, great.
recording will be there also, or you send that to us?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll work with Tom to make that happen. Okay, Drew?
Okay, great.
And I know this will be too big, but I will save this out as a PDF and shoot it, either pop it in the chat right now, or send it as a follow-up email. I think this compresses down to about 1 meg, and then the links still do work as a PDF. So that is a beautiful thing.
Great presentation. I have a couple of questions about our environment. Maybe Drew can chime in, but we're kind of in a not really mixed mode yet. We're coming off of Exchange 2010, going to Exchange 2016, and then at some point we'll be in the cloud. And how does eDiscovery, Advanced eDiscovery, help us in that scenario when we have different repositories that we have to connect to? So
you're really moving into a realm of enhanced data governance. But so we, with this hurry up offense, we also hurried up and did a couple of really cool things. And the one really cool thing that we did was we made Teams capable of leveraging a shadow mailbox in the cloud, so that you can Teams with on-premises Exchange. So what we do is we create a shadow mailbox. You don't have to move your mailboxes to the cloud, but it will create a shadow in the cloud and allow you to keep your mailbox on-prem, but the chat and the group chat and the private chat messages will be in a shadow mailbox in the cloud. So this is kind of a cool thing. Well, I'm not even sharing, and I'm sharing, but there's a great document out here. So what we did is we'll create a shadow mailbox in the cloud. It doesn't interfere when you move your mailbox to the cloud. So in hybrid, we basically, with our Exchange, we create your Exchange server on premises, and then you have your Exchange server in the cloud. That's supposed to be a square or a rectangle. You take your CAS server, and this is a client access server, not a cloud app security server. And we add the hybrid configuration wizard or the agent. There is now a agent available for the HCW in the GCC, Government Community Cloud. So hybrid configuration wizard, we add that to your CAS server, and then that goes through. This basically says, hey, here's a firewall, here's a cloud. And what you would see in the EMC, the Exchange Management Council, on premises is any Exchange servers and forests that you have, and then any users. And I always create one called CLD, and then I can say, hey, I want to move this user Joe from on-prem to the cloud. That would move Joe's mailbox from here to the cloud. You don't have to do that move, but what it's going to do is say, hey, Joe is here on-prem and Joe is using Teams. So I'm going to create a folder out here, a shadow for Joe in the cloud. Super great question. But there are inside of enhanced governance capabilities inside the Protection Center. You will find in enhanced government, and there are import capabilities to import PST or third-party archives or other files. And there's more to come in the not too distant future. The other thing that Advanced eDiscovery does is allows you to import content. So if you had file shares or a laptop, to add that content to a case as well. So I hope that's helpful. I know we're right at time, so I apologize, but I did try to get through this vast amount of content as quickly as possible.
Thank you. That was my last question. You're reading my mind already, so thank you so much. That was good.
Awesome. Good.
Great, thanks.
All righty. Well, thank you for your time. And again, I'll upload that deck here right now. So, and if it doesn't quite make it, it should. But if it doesn't,
And who's sharing the recording? Was that Kurt who's going to share the recording? Or is that you, Thomas? Did you record? I don't know who did the recording.
Yeah, I did. Yep.
Okay, good. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All righty.
Yeah, I
Thanks so
think
much.
I think in the recording you can go minus instead of forward in terms of speed. You can probably reduce it down for those on the call.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Take care, guys.
Thanks a lot,
Thanks for your time.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you. Yeah, that was helpful.